Trigger on.
Trigger on.
We have to edit that slightly after ours.
I love how that sounded. Welcome, dear all, to the Duckface Diaries. We are a World Trigger read-through podcast aiming to discuss the World Trigger manga, volume by volume. I'm Wensleydale Cheddar.
And I'm Hovin with an eighth. With an eighth, wow. Hovin with an H. and this month we're tackling volume 15 of World Trigger, which covers chapters 125 to 133, and Hovin will try not to gush too much about the anime material, which covers Season 2, Episodes 1 to 4.
Today, apart from that, we welcome a very special guest. So he's the creator of Read Right to Left and Jump Date, which are both manga review shows, as well as the host of the weekly manga recap podcast, alongside Chris Larios, whom we've already had on. So he's here to fill the bleach-shaped holes in our hearts.
I'm never gonna live that down.
I do love this catchphrase, and he has come here just in the nick of time. Please welcome Nik Freeman. How are you doing, sir? Glad to have you on the show.
I'm blown away. That is like the most well thought out guest podcast introduction I have ever received. Thank you for that. I'm doing lovely now. Thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. We try as much as we can. What have you been up to?
Lately I've been doing a lot of boring real life stuff, but I have also been working on something that I kind of announced on Twitter as part of my efforts to kind of casually get back into doing videos. You mentioned Read Right to Left. I haven't done Read Right to Left in like 7 years or something at this point. It's been a long time, and I have no plans to actually get back to it as of right now.
Yeah, it's not the best one to like introduce to you with. I should have started with Jump Date, to be honest.
At the same time, however, that is probably still what people like know me most for. That's those traffic that I would get to my stuff. So that is honestly probably where my reputation most precedes me, unless you talk to the Bleach fandom, and we won't talk about that.
Oh dear.
In which case, I probably know for something else, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, but best we don't talk about that. You're sitting in the podcast with someone who thinks Bleach is good after Soul Society, actually. So maybe best to avoid that topic.
But I am not currently working on Jump Day because I started putting my efforts towards a really big involving project that I did announce on Twitter. I won't go into detail about it because it'll take me a long time to finish it up as of the recording, when we're recording this. So, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. So.
Oh, yeah. It was thoroughly discussed on the WMR Discord. So today's agenda, we're going to do a bit of an interview with Nik here, basically asking him, as we do with all our guests, what his World Trigger journey was like. Then we're going to do a volume summary of volume 15 of World Trigger, created, of course, by Daisuke Ashihara, translated by Toshikazu Aizawa this time. Touch-up and lettering done by a good friend A-School Chrisman, designed by Sam Elsway, and edited by Ray First.
I feel like an Ace's honor. I might need to just like whenever we talk about if we talk about like new chapter title, I have to go World Trigger. So
amazing. That will be your contribution to the volume summary.
Excellent.
So then we're going to move on to our general thoughts. Do a bit of Ashihara Comments Corner where we discuss the volume extras, and a bit of a spoiler corner, and then do some extra Q&As. This sound good to you?
Yes.
Okay, let's get to the interview then.
All right. Okay, so Nik.
Oh, that's me, right? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so Nik. How did your World Trigger journey start?
It's very well documented. When World Trigger first started getting published, this was before every series got simultaneously published in the English version of Jump, but World Trigger being, an action series did very quickly get added to the English online Viz-provided Shonen Jump service. I wasn't a fan of it, as we covered it, week to week, and honestly, at around the time that a lot of series get canceled early, that is when both for Chris and myself, when we were covering on Weekly Manga Recap, that was when both of us started to finally come around to it. I was incredibly dismissive of it from the beginning, And there is one episode recap where I think that I reduced my comments down to this is how many duck faces there are in this chapter. And I refuse to talk about it anymore, I think. And then it became one of my favorite Jump series ever.
And now look where you are.
It came down to, after having a long time with the characters and getting familiar with them, even if it were on a level of just kind of recognizing them by appearance and not really liking them, Ashihara started to delve more into what made the characters tick, in particular Yuma, at the time that we started to turn a corner on it. And all of a sudden, it felt like, you know what? Yeah, I could actually get behind this. And it just kept on improving from there. I'm a very character-first person when it comes to really essentially any story. And so once I had characters that I could actually care about, I started giving the series more of a chance in terms of everything else that it was doing, which it had always been doing well. It's just that I didn't care about the people who were doing it up until that point. And the characters only got better from that point. And so I started getting more into the action and more into the mechanics of everything, more into the very intellectual, strategy-minded approach to things where you could just kind of throw people's video game bodies at a problem and they didn't have to worry about the way that they got hurt, and it led to unique situations because of that. And also just appreciating the very different and very well done aesthetic that Ashihara was able to execute with the way everything looked. There are so many very bizarrely beautiful things in World Trigger that you don't really see in any other series that, you know, has run in Jump in the past 10, 15 years. So, very positive now, but did not start off that way.
It's very interesting. Like we had some guests, like Ace, of course, and Lum, who basically liked it from the start. We had Chris and you on, who have turned around right about chapter 20 or something. And we had also Dr. Nova on, who basically didn't like it up until the invasion, I think. So yeah, a lot of variety.
The first invasion with Tokrador?
Yeah, that's right.
I can totally see that, because that is a point where things really start kicking into high gear, and a lot of drama does start getting injected in the story. So I totally get that. There are, weirdly enough, like a lot of points in the series where it suddenly and drastically changes direction. So I feel like there's a lot of different moments for people to give a second, third, or fourth chance to the series if they didn't like it initially.
When you read the invasion, the previous arcs kind of start. You kind of start caring about the characters from that point, even if you didn't really particularly care about them before. That was basically my experience.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on being a very characters first kind of reader. What are some of your favorites in World Trigger?
I love Osamu. I love Kitora, because Kitora is just like a kind of character that I wish that there were more of in manga. Just like a woman who's very competent, and yeah, she's kind of an asshole, but like that's not the point of her being there. The point of her being there is that she's a badass, and that, you know, there is more to her than just that. But it's not that, but she needs to change. She needs to, open up and show more of her womanly feelings or whatever. It's like, no, that's dumb, because you would like a guy for being that way if they were a soldier, being the stone cold, heartless badass with a secret, good side to them. I like a lot of the characters in small ways. I like all of Tamakoma too. All of Tamakoma in general, really. Yotaro might have been the one exception for a while, but I think that a lot of the stuff that happens roughly around this volume that we'll be covering, and then a lot of stuff onward, has made me like him more. And I always did like that he had, a freaking giant capybara that he rode around on. And this might surprise some people, but I've actually grown to quite like Katori, who is introduced around this point in the manga, but we don't get to really know until later. But in, as kind of a microcosm of the way that World Trigger was in the beginning, she was kind of just like a punching bag on WMR for a while. And over time, I've actually grown to like her in terms of the fact that there is a direction that, for character development for her that was apparently in mind from the get-go that I do enjoy.
Interesting. I didn't gather that punching bag wise, but I did find Kotori a very interesting character in how her toxicity basically influences the world around her. She is a very charismatic character.
She's different.
Having one fight where that mindset is upended isn't going to change her overnight, and it might profoundly affect her. But there's more to be done.
I do think that I'm a bit different from what I feel is kind of the standard fan base for World Trigger, based purely on how the results of character popularity polls of different ilks seem to go. As in, there are a lot of minor characters amongst the agents of Border that are just kind of cool and attractive guys. And surprisingly, that doesn't really endear them to me. I mean, there are some people amongst them that have more memorable characters, like Kageura is aggressive, and then of course there's Ikoma, who is a wonderful goof. But I feel like there are a lot of guys that are just kind of the same character in slightly tweaked degrees, because there have to be so many agents of Border to fill out the rank wars and such.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of characters that I look at and I have to like, which one is that? So.
Case in point, Arashiyama and Jin being slightly recolored models of the same character.
Yeah, there are slight tweaks, and I mean, but they have the advantage of being a little bit more relevant than the others. So but yeah, if they were each, just kind of melded into the background of everyone else, and they had, the exact same amount to do as all the other characters, yeah, they would essentially be the same character, but as you say, with slightly different colored hair. So
most of those attractive cool guys are rather defined by the relationships to each other, I guess, rather than their own characteristics.
I do want to say, sorry, but I don't have a problem with, with all these, guys that in my opinion are a little bit indistinguishable from each other, but they're popular because they're attractive. That's fine if you're into that. Please don't look. You all are the reason that World Trigger kept going. Okay, so I'm very much aware of that now. Like, it's something that I kind of had to just kind of come to grips with after a certain point, is that there is a certain very passionate fan base that is behind the success of any popular manga series.
I guess unlike Haikyuu, they are not sweaty boys, but I guess Osama is always sweaty, so that works.
Okay, and you have, through some means, Nik, been given a trigger of your own. Maybe it's a neighbor's trigger, maybe it's a border trigger, maybe it's like a back alley one that got stolen. If you could personalize this trigger with your own activation phrase and pose, what would they be?
I don't know if I would have an activation phrase. Triggers in particular have weird names to me. Sometimes they are in various languages, including ones that don't really make sense because apparently the same languages exist as on Earth. But I do wear glasses all the time, so I believe that my trigger would have to have some sort of viewing thing. And so my trigger pose would involve me kind of sweeping my hand over the top of my head so that it would summon a visor or whatever on my head so that I could see.
Oh, I thought you would do the anime push-up glasses thing as the activation pose.
No, because that's what people expect me to say.
True. We'll ask about Nick's favorite moments in the spoiler corner, so tune in for that. But for now, let's get to the volume summary. Let's see. Do you want to do the world trigger?
I don't have to do it every time. I just did it for the volume. If you're cool with that. If you're gonna ask me to do it 11 times, I will never forget it or be like, why did I decide to do this? So.
Okay. Every time we start the summary and there's rank walls, I say rank walls Shokugeki no Yuma, but this time there's no rank walls, so oh well. Anyway. We start off in the Tamakoma base, where Yotaro wakes up and sees Hughes has disappeared. Casting over to HQ, Sawamura reports 3 of the invading neighbors are in the building, which the A-rank Captain Fuyoshima attempts to block with bulkhead doors he controls remotely. We're then introduced to all the Gallipoles from Gallipoland, which is the Poland that actually managed to into space, as they exchange one final set of instructions before splitting up to do the job. So there's Gatlin, the clear captain, ragged daddy of the team. There's Wensleydale, the serious lady with the eyes like Donald Duck. There's Ritarikov, a non-distinct boy with the buzz cut. There's Reginald, the impatient lad with the almond hair. There's Koskaro, the bored-looking bloke who wants to imitate Tachikawa's style. And there's Yomi, the youngest-looking member of the team and the operator of the crew who remotely controls Trine soldiers.
Yeah. A lot of very easily distinguishable designs, except for Rotarikov, and I'm sure that he won't be important, ever.
What kind of reason could there be for him having such a boring design? I guess we'll never know. As Rata, Gatlin, and Wen draw closer to the away ship to destroy it, Rata asks to confirm if they can really kill the captive Hughes on Afterkrator's orders. Suddenly, Jin shows up and delivers a bunch of Fujin slashes. 3 Gallipolish soldiers defend themselves with shields, and Rata uses a new trigger to make an opening in the base's Trine wall so they can get through. Jin is surprised they were prepared against his black trigger, but now that he's seen them, even though they've escaped, he can see the future. Thus, he informs Shinoda about the target. So we now know the stakes. Destroying the away ship would delay Border's plans significantly, and Osama's team's plans as well. Fuyoshima and Kinuta plan to counter Gallipola's permeation trigger, while Armo informs the command about the enemy's colors, building up Gatlin as an opponent on Shinoda's level. As Shinoda decides on dealing with the neighbors inside, using just the agents who are already there, we cut to outside, where Tsuji and Midorikawa arrive to help aid compose Beefcake and Arafune in clearing out the dogs, so the snipers can shoot freely. Meanwhile, inside, Nasa and Kumagai hold up Wen, Saw with Viper, just as Miwa Squad spots and engages Kaskero outside. Kaskero reveals an interesting weapon, a liquid shield that renders blades hitting it useless. So making Yanea go through the hassle of expending more Trine to summon a new spear. Still, that shield is the same as any, since Miwa's lead bullets can still pass through it. As Yanea uses this opening to cut off Koskero's legs, he remarks, "I've had a thing for legs recently," to which I say, "Big same." Koskero tries to make do with the dogs, and Idra's already assisting him, as we cut over to Nasa and Kumagai. Wen keeps summoning dogs until she uses a smokescreen to counter Nasa's skill and accuracy in taking out the Trine soldiers, but Wen uses it to draw closer to her, using her disguise trigger to take Kumagai's form, taking out Ray's arm. Rata and Gatlin have a clear way to the away ship, but waiting for them is a lineup of the top 4 attackers: Tachikawa, Kazama, Konami, and Murakami. Oh, that rhymed. Jin is wondering what step he should take next, but someone throws him a curveball in his plans. Yotaro has left the Tamakoma base, riding Raijimaru to chase after Hughes, telling his pet to look for the smell of curry. So Jin has no choice but to join that chase. On the main battlefield, Kako and Ninamiya squads are thinning out the Trine soldier numbers. The captains of the respective squads bicker over who should take command, until Arashiyama nominates Suwa, only for Suwa to ask Ninamiya for advice again. As the main force pushes back, Yomi decides to steer one of the Idras manually to aid Reggie. As Gatlin and Rata confront the top attackers, Tachikawa makes the absolute Chad move of telling them exactly where the ship is, challenging them to cut him down before they can get to it. So Gatlin's like, Kurva, what's going on? Not only do they know what we're after, but they also have information about our triggers. But then Kazama leaps out of Chameleon to cut his arm off. However, Gatlin reveals he has arms to spare, revealing 4 Dr. Octopus appendages from his back. So he's like, Kurva, hello, Peter. Not only that, he uses one of the summoning eggs to replace the arm he lost with a gun. The combat begins.
He's got a very great expression on his face while he's doing this, too. You can tell that, like, he's had someone run up and cut off his arm, like, countless times up to this point. So, all right, time to put the gun arm on, whatever.
Gatlin aims his giant fucking gun at the hangar, and Ko just barely manages to deflect his bullets with his Raygus shield. So 2 dogs attack Murakami to cut off his shield arm, but Konami and Tachikawa respond by slashing them open. Rotarikov supports his leader by summoning a flying Beyblade trigger called Despenius. Shut up, I'm not 12, you're 12. So with Despenius, Kazama has to go visible to block the Beyblades, so Rata guesses he can't use weapons with Chameleon. The attackers seem to be targeting Rata first as the weaker enemy, and Gatlin is surprised to see Konami has managed to break off one of his claws and decides he and Rata have to buy 15 more minutes so the cannon can be recharged. Kazama takes the lead and decides to split up the fighters. After a brief cut to Hughes, we go back to the battlefield where Composed Beefcake is leading the defense against the Idras. 2 of the Trine soldiers seem to be moving in erratic patterns, one of them catching Kurama off guard. Hisato defends him, but suffers a blow to the stomach, and Kuroe and Kitora jump down to take one of the ace Idras, while Hisato and Tsuji from Ninomiya squad are dispatched to take on the other one. So Kuroe's a rude baby. She's like, don't get in my way, Kitora. I'll get this done in 30 seconds. And Kitora supports her by immobilizing the Idra with Spider, while Kuroe finishes it off with a high-speed slash she calls Skanda, which is my favorite action panel of this volume. Soon enough, Armo figures out that the operator Yomi controls 2 Idras remotely at the same time, with his split-focused side effect, which has a very stupid name, Absolute Parallel Simultaneous Cerebration. I fucking hate that.
It feels like that absolute is an entirely unnecessary adjective to describe what he can do, other than to give you the idea that he does it well.
Yeah, and like parallel and simultaneous. I mean, you could have figured out that he does these things at the same time. Honestly, so
what happened was he was writing 2 different descriptions at the same time using his absolute parallel simultaneous cerebration. And then the 2 got jammed together. And that's why there are probably twice as many words as there need to be to describe it.
There we go. I also have focusing issues, so I can totally see that. So Kuroe's impatience leads to her downfall. Given that Yomi can just transfer his consciousness to another set of Idras, he learns the pattern of her attacks and braces himself for it. So Kuroe is cut, and Netsuki panics as losing even one agent could turn the tide, given that border is outnumbered. Shinoda, however, thinks that the mission has been left in the right hands. There's no reason for him to go out quite yet.
Kitora stops the now injured Kuroe from frustratedly throwing herself back into combat, insisting that they can't fight recklessly and that they need the Ace Hydra suppressed. Back in the base, Nasu and Kumagai are whittling down Wen's shields with precision, so Wen decides to use her duplication technique to create a bunch of false clones of herself. With multiple try-on readings, Nasu is unable to land a hit as Wen chips away at Kumagai. But then, after failing a retreat, Kuma notices the duplicate triggers floating above the battlefield, which Nasu proceeds to start destroying. The battle heats up in a desperate struggle. A bunch of Wen's clones come in, but the voice of Kikuchihara on the intercom points out the real body of Kumagai, unearthing a clever trick where she used the duplicate trigger to camouflage her own body as appearing mirrored from her left and right sides. Kuma disarms her before Nasu finishes her off in a stunning pillar-shaped light show of Viper, ruthlessly dispatching the neighbor that dared scar her loyal teammate, Trion body. Kikuchihara and Utagawa arrive on the scene and take Wen into custody. Taking the fight inside a house, Miwa and Yonei notice that Kosukero's trigger coats whatever it touches in a lubricant that makes it tricky to maintain any kind of grip or function. Noticing the similarity in function to lead bullets, they start damaging the environment around Kosukero as his trigger can't block non-Trion objects. The fight is taken to the roof, where Miwa seems to question Kosukero on Gallipola's involvement with the first large-scale invasion, only for it to be stalling for Jin to take him down with a well-aimed Fujin strike from another roof. With the ground fighters now confident that the battle is in its latter stages, Scruffy Hotting and Composed Beefcake pull out all the stops with their Geist and full arms, mowing down Hydras relentlessly. Reggie resolves to handle this himself, despite Yomi's call to retreat, attempting to lure them away by making it look like he and his dogs are attacking the residential district. However, with the memory of Aftercouture's similar tactic and no word from Jin, the ground fighters see through this bluff pretty easily. The hangar fight rages on, with Tachikawa, Murakami, and Konami all unable to break through Polish Doc Ock's shields. Rata takes his fight with Kazama into the air in order to avoid the warp tile traps laid out to slip him up. Taking stock as his gun finally recharges, Gatlin reflects on the challenges posed by each A-ranker, deciding on a finishing move. Meanwhile, Tachikawa and Konami hatch a plan. Rata does all he can to keep Murakami occupied while fending off Kazama. When Kazama goes invisible, he tries to track him using the leaking Trion from a wound Kazama sustained earlier in the battle. However, imitating Yuma's technique from the Nasu Suzunari one match, Kazama uses his severed arm as bait to distract him before disarming and dislegging his opponent. Rata's last volume of shots allows Gatlin the opening he needs to fire on the hangar wall in front of the ship. Tachikawa closes in to take the shot point blank, much to Murakami's frustration. Kon knows the shot will pass through K and destroy the ship, and cannot tell where to position his shield. However, this was all part of the plan. Konami rushes in, fulfilling Jin's prediction herself as she splits Tachikawa and Gatlin in two. The battle is over. Having gotten some distance from the battlefield, Reggie and his dogs are confronted by Hughes, instantly recognizing him as the captive from Aftercouture. That's the end of the volume.
Holy shit, I went overboard on my notes. I basically had thrice as many as you.
No, I've definitely... I've kind of been making a concerted effort to, streamline the notes as much as possible.
Alright then. Let's get to our general thoughts.
Alright.
So, when I first read this, I thought that, Gallipola is not really the highlight of the series. The stakes seemed to be low, and it all seemed like a big distraction before the match we were really looking forward to see how Osama's team would improve. And now I've kind of turned around on this. This is really fun. It's really nice to see all the A-rankers in the fight again, and finding out about Gallipola's new weapons and how Border can adapt to them breathes a lot of fresh air into the series. And the stakes are still low, but Yotaro being, haha, I'm in danger, ups that a bit. So I quite enjoyed this.
Nick?
Well, I do like how it's a much more personal set of stakes than the previous invasion. Although I wouldn't even really consider this an invasion. This is more like the Gallipola attempted subterfuge arc than the Gallipola invasion, because they are literally just like, we're gonna go up and we're gonna mess up their car, and then we're gonna leave. But it's a lot smaller, and so I feel like it's a lot easier to keep track of. There aren't really a lot of moving parts. There are just, a few separate battles that kind of just maintain the same sets of competitors on all fronts. You don't have, like in the Aftercouture invasion, you've got people who are just kind of rampaging through border agents until finally they come up against someone that does manage to repel them, or in one or two cases actually defeat them. But in this one, it's a little bit easier to keep track, and it's not like it's completely simple. There are some very important moving parts that set up a big dramatic twist that happens just after this volume, and it's important to keep track of those. I loved reading this all in one go, because you could very easily see it develop and see things getting set up for what happens when, at the end of the volume, when Hughes and Reggie come across each other. You see the logic that is followed on both of their fronts, and as well as on Yotaro's, and the way that Jin is viewing it over the course of the volume, setting up to that point. I also like that it makes sure that even though the stakes are low, to take a couple of different details just prior to this volume to say, hey, this is still definitely something you're going to want to tune in for, because here are the two different sets of danger. Oh, Tachikawa could be in trouble, although you never really actually buy that. But it does have a very satisfying payoff at the very end of the fight with Gatlin. And hey, if there is damage here, not only does it really set back Border, but it completely ruins Tamakoma 2's plans. And so you really have to put your faith in these guys, some of which you consider opponents to Tamakoma 2 prior to this point, in the hopes that Osamu and Yuma and Chika rather are going to be able to actually fulfill their mission and go and rescue the people that are important to them. And I liked the addition of the personal stakes to the more wide-scale ones. And also, it's just more clever stuff that happens in this. Some repositioning. I really love the liquid shield trigger. It's a unique obstacle for someone to overcome. And Gatlin is really cool with his giant mechanical arms and his giant F-off cannon. So
all the fighters are kind of unique in their own way. I really like Wen and her understated trickster fighting style. It was a really cool fight.
Yeah, I feel like, you mentioned kind of the scale of the arc, and I think often in arcs with like a lot of ongoing concurrent fights, it's a matter of finding that balance between allowing the fights to play out in a satisfying way and also cutting between them to keep up the momentum, and how much do you want to weigh towards one or the other. And I think, like with the large-scale invasion, this does a very good job of having the fights are very dependent on one another, so obviously the pressures from the outside fights are important in drawing tension away for the inside fights, so it doesn't feel unwieldy to cut between them a lot, and I feel like they do it to the right amount.
I remember there was like slight disappointment in our circles of the fandom at the time. I think it's due to we usually expect the stakes to get upped, and after the rank wars being relatively low stakes, we kind of expect an invasion to be this really high stakes thing as well. But I think it works quite well in its own right. There are a lot of developments into the side characters too. So there's Miwa, who decides to be more specific in his prejudice and actually looks to identify the nation that committed the war crimes on Japan 4 years ago. There's Kitora, who gains some respect from Kuroe. There's Hisato, who grows as a more calm fighter, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Kuroe stuff in particular was very nice, because it's quite funny to see the tables turned on Kitora, who usually has that very holier-than-thou attitude, but Kuroe is very much using that on her, but she allows for it because she understands Kuroe is young and also really wants to mentor her, and then you get the turnaround in the middle of the fight where she actually gets to fulfill that role. I think for me, I don't even remember what my first reaction to this arc was, because on my second read-through of this, I completely forgot this arc existed, and in doing so, I was really pleasantly surprised by it, because I do think it's a really nice way to vary things up. After we've had, like, a lot of these rank war matches where the stakes are, you need to get points, and it's nice to have one where they're a bit more specific, and it has that thing where it's very much to the wire with it. Like, even like, when Kazuma manages to take out Rata, he still gets that last attack in that gives Gatlin an opening. And yeah, that's always a very exciting sort of ramp up of stakes as the battle goes on. If we ever get another arc like this in our lifetime, I'll be very happy.
Going back to what you said, Nick, I do remember Chris and you were a bit disappointed by kind of the threat of the foreshadowing of Tachikawa getting cut down, having no consequences.
I believe that we figured from the wording he's gonna get Tryon cut in half and be fine. So.
It's not like the expectation of him dying was on the table in the first place, right? So the significance of that prediction was more along the likes of, holy shit, they're actually strong enough to defeat our number one attacker and overall agent. So yeah, it was more low stakes than I guess it sounded.
Yeah, and I will say that I believe that at the time that we were covering it, even though we have been saying like, oh, whatever, who cares about this? The way that it actually does happen is a very okay. Good payoff on the thing you set up. So yeah, no qualms about it now, having seen the whole way it played out after the fact. So
I know, like, obviously it's made very clear in the volume that it's a strategy that him and Konami work out on the fly. I do find it amusing to read Tachikawa's very direct "come and get me" taunt. It's like, why don't you cut us down first? You know, victory is only a chop away.
But then afterwards, we may have to ask you a couple of questions. Konami? Konami? High five, but the upper half of my body, Konami. High five me. Come on.
Oh, I love this. Also, as we found out in the border briefing file when we covered it, it's the second time Tachikawa was involved in a tactic when somebody from the same team is getting cut down, so that he can get the opponent by surprise, because it happened earlier with the fight with Jin earlier. I believe that he cut Kazama down, I think. Yeah. I find, okay, his actual name is Reggie, but I prefer to call him Reginald. I
thought I was mispronouncing it, and I was going to call him Reggie, but yeah.
So Reginald is a very interesting, impulsive character, which we always like in World Trigger. He has good basic tactics, as everyone does, but he finds it difficult to adapt when something counters them, like Jin's precognition, and when it does, he takes it personally.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like the moment where he's like, if I leave them here to the residential area, they will think that I'm attacking it with this kind of tunnel vision, and it's it's like a clever plan, but he doesn't account for everyone expecting that.
Yeah, and the way that he says it, afterwards, it's not, don't you care about the safety of your own people? It's, oh, what? Oh, do you not think they'll do it? Screw you guys. I'm strong and scary.
I like the idea that over the intercom, Yomi, the gamer, is just playing his Nintendo Switch, muttering to himself not my Reggie.
Excuse me, Nintendo Switch. I believe it's a Steam Deck. Thank you very much. Is that a dated reference now?
I don't know.
I don't believe the Steam Deck has come out yet, so no.
It seems like I was checking my notes, but because I rewrote most of them, I was checking, and Yomi controlling the Triumph Cell just through his Steam Deck. What's a Steam Deck? I didn't remember that at all.
Let's see. I think one criticism I do have with the volume, some of the action choreography in the Gatlin and Rata battle is a bit messy. The big instance I can think of is when what I thought was Gatlin brings down this raised platform on Tachikawa, and then when I watched the anime, I realised it was Gatlin raising a platform that had been dropped on him, because the action in the anime is far easier to follow here.
Oh, yeah. The part when they were fighting on the wall, basically. I didn't get that at all, and I skipped it in the recap. I love that Rata keeps thinking that Kazama is unusually calm for a child. It's everyone assumes that he's younger than he actually is.
Poor Kazama. So yeah, I guess to go into, because I've been watching along with the anime, the money shots are mostly in the hangar fight. A lot of the hand-to-hand stuff is done really, really well. The embellishments to Wensaw versus Nasu and Kumagai are interesting, in that, when Kikuchihara contacts Kumagai in the anime, she's actually seen from the balcony. There's a shot of him, which isn't in the volume. And then also when Kumagai looks up and notices the duplicate triggers in the air, she gets a view of a kind of a blurred view of the triggers. And then when Nasu notices them, they come into focus, which I think is a very nice touch, because it emphasizes how one of them is just going on okay, I'm in the middle of the fight, I can't really focus on these, and then the other is oh, I see what it is. And also, I think the room going dark from the lights going out is a lot more pronounced in anime form, which makes a lot of sense.
Did you manage to check out the anime, Nick?
I have checked out none of the anime.
Oh, and not even the filler arc.
No, I understand that when the anime came back for the more recent season, that it seemingly has made some significant improvements, but I was very put off by the promotional videos for it that showed characters standing very still while their lips moved. And I decided, no.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, the previews did not sell it at all. And then you watch the episode and it's like, holy crap. World Trigger has dramatic lighting and frequent Sakuga now. What is this? Yeah, no, I think Season 2 is very worth checking out.
I do have a couple of notes on Yomi. His hijinks shifting between the Shrine soldiers really makes me excited for the opportunity for like Usami and the other border operators to do the same in the future, maybe.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
It would be really sucky just for him to get to do that and for the girls to get nothing. And I guess Yomi himself is a really neat twist on the remote fighter archetype in that the operator position has already been known to us before. So, yeah.
One thing I'm wondering, how does Nasu stand like that? I guess it's a bit weirder in the anime, because it's just like she's standing on one leg and just kind of floating there. Is that like a property of a Treon body or something?
A lot of border agents just jump around on one leg, to be honest, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It might, honestly, it might have to do with agents are just used to having to make their way around after a limb's been chopped off, and maybe she's just really used to staying on one leg now.
Yeah, no, it's that Kairos from One Piece like property where he just kind of walks around like normal, but just with one leg.
I guess people can tell when something is a black trigger. I guess just from its power, or Gatling was immediately able to tell that Konami's trigger wasn't a black one. Murakami had a similar thought about Vasilisa, Gatling's triggers, so I guess they were instinctively able to guess.
Maybe he got confused because of Konami's light-colored hair, and so it's like, well, she doesn't have black horns, so I guess it's not a black trigger.
That is fair.
I guess to get the remainder of my anime thoughts out of the way, Tachikawa's Kagetsu Whirlwind on Rata is insanely cool in the anime. You get the quick shot of him jumping in, and then it like zooms in on him, and then just him unsheathing the sword is done in such a flashy, cool way. And then it's very interesting because the two concurrent fights, the Nasu finisher is given much more love by the anime than the Konami one at the end of the hangar fight. Like the Konami one is just kind of a still shot that's sort of moved back and forth to imply movement, whereas like the Nasu one, they actually show the pillar forming and like do some very cool lighting effects as it pierces through Wen.
I mean, I can understand that, like, lighting effects are way easier to animate than character movements, so...
Yeah. I imagine that, I think one gripe I do have with the anime is that I imagined Kikuchihara's, like, little input into, what was his name? Who's like, Utagawa, like, comes in and, like, just like, oh, sorry we didn't get here in time. I imagined him more like deadpan, so it'd be like, me, I helped. Whereas the Seiyu's delivery is more of an indignant, like, oi, I helped, and which I would have found the former a bit funnier, personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I do love him getting pissy about it. It's interesting that speaking of, like, Kazama Squad, it's interesting that Kazama takes the lead in the fight against Gatlin, since, like, during the attack on Jin, Tachikawa and Miwa were more like the leaders in that regard, but we do learn later that Kazama is more of a commander than Tachikawa in the first place. So I guess the actual development of his character crystallized a bit later after introduction. It wasn't all planned out from the start, which I appreciate.
I do like the like Kazuma picking up Yuma's technique. It shows that, like, despite criticism of Osamu, he does like.
He's not, he's proud, but he's not so proud as to not swipe techniques from other people when he sees that they work.
I forgot, so Wensleydale forgot that Geist, so Scruffy Hottie's trigger, had a gunner and an attacker mode. I do wonder whether there's a sniper mode, whether Scruffy actually turns out to be the perfect all-rounder all along. Great stuff from, like, Tsukimi, Miwa's operator. She used to be the operator for Azuma's back when he was number 1 with Ninomiya and Kako, right?
Yeah.
There she is getting Jin's help to hit Koskaros with Fujin, so I do like that bit with her as an experienced commander.
One thing I noticed, Kogetsu Senku, not to be confused with Kogetsu Taiju, it's been translated into the much less weebish Kogetsu Whirlwind. I don't know if that's from this volume onwards. It's the same in the anime as well. It is of note that this is the first volume done by Toshikaku Aizawa, so I'm wondering if that's the reason, or if the translation started to change earlier. I'm not sure. But this is the first time I've noticed it.
Oh, was this? I guess we'll have to check out. I do remember Senku being used earlier, but maybe that's just my memory being hazy.
It's been so long since that happened, that I've completely forgot that there was a time when it was translated as Kogetsu Senku. So
yeah, no, there wasn't even the overlap, so that the Dr. Stone jokes would be obvious to you, I guess.
yeah. So there you go. I mean, I think this chapter would have been. This chapter would have probably come out right around the time that Dr. Stone started, I guess. If it was chapter 131.
I think World Trigger was on hiatus when Dr. Stone came out, but because I remember that was when we started Stammer Stream on chapter 4 of Dr. Stone.
I believe you're right.
So World Trigger wasn't around that back then.
Yes.
World Trigger started going on hiatus 3 or 4 months before Dr. Stone debuted. So
yeah.
Although this fight was not too long before it went on hiatus, if I remember correctly.
I believe. Wait. Actually, no. I feel like it was. No, it was. There's actually 3 more Rank Wars matches before that happened. Because it was right before the one that will be starting season 3 will be starting on. That was when the big break happened.
I do have one more note. I do really like Tsuji being proud of Hisato's growth as a fighter and as a tactician. I thought that was a very cute moment.
All right. Shall we go to the Ashihara comments corner?
All right then.
So yeah, let's do it.
Let's go to the Ashihara comments corner. At the start of the volume, in the credits section, Ashihara's like, I never thought the over-the-counter medicine worked for me, so I never trusted medicine in general, but the painkillers I got from the hospital are working great. Meds are awesome. Him kind of trauma-dumping / humble bragging about how much painkillers he has to take now. Oh, I love it, because it retroactively makes me trauma-dumping about my fascist government back in Poland is now justified. It wasn't awkward in any sense, it was just on brand for World Trigger.
Oh.
Yeah, poor Ashihara.
Oh, I love that Fuyushima's got his gamer fuel. He's just got so many energy drinks in his cupboard.
Fucking half of border agents are gamers. He's not very distinctive in that regard. He's even more Tachikawa than Tachikawa, I guess.
I like the details that Dog Manverd is a great companion on the battlefield, but its face is ugly, whereas Doug Battalier is just an overall cool dog.
Yeah, oh my god, Ashihara is like really judgmental about the dog's looks. This dog is awesome and brave. This dog is fucking garbage.
Ashihara is one of those psychopaths that resets Animal Crossing if he gets a villager that he finds ugly.
Oh dear.
As someone who doesn't like dogs, he's totally accurate, though. That dog is like the offspring of a tank and a unicorn, and that dog has one stupid eye. So he's right to call one cool and one ugly.
And I do like his note, fighting only one is a piece of cake. Fighting a pack is an annoying piece of cake. We've met Maki at this point in one of the chapters that Lum and I liked, but everyone else seemed to hate. Yeah, we already get a tease of how strict she is with her teammates. That's Fuyushima's operator.
I like that Kako Squad have a kitchen for some reason. It's like, I don't know why you'd want to tempt fate like this and give her the tools of awful destruction that she does not need, but there you go.
For context, Nick, in one of the previous volumes, we got an author note that she poisoned one of the Sewer Squad members once with her rice.
On purpose or accidentally?
I think it's one of those tropes. Woman, bad cook.
Oh no, she'll never be a good housewife. Yeah, got it.
Speaking of, the wording of this volume's resident Ashihara boomer moment might imply that the operator of Kako Squad's area is more so keeping a strong schedule for cleaning rather than doing it themselves, or maybe I'm just making excuses for him. I don't know.
I do like Wensleydale's page, though. Taken with a charitable interpretation, it's fucking based. Ashihara doesn't understand why a man fighting her wouldn't be exciting, so he had to give the fight to Nasa, I guess. I interpreted it as kind of his battle with executive meddling, but could go either way. We had some creepy comments from him before.
Jump editorial has hang-ups, man.
I do understand that there is a very, very, very wavy line in terms of intergender combat, because you don't want to glorify, a guy beating up a woman. But I think that if you have, an exciting back and forth battle, then that's an entirely different thing. It can be very, very easy if you avoid it, or you do something that keeps on getting brought up in a series that we're going to be covering for WMR, History's Strongest Disciple Kenichi, where the hero will repeatedly be like, no, I don't punch girls. And when it'll be like, okay, so this is just sexist. Cool. It's a very tricky thing, but I do think that avoiding it entirely is really just kind of the easy way out. And that, especially in a series where there are a lot of very strong, very capable, very cool female characters, especially for a Shonen Jump series, that having to have them go off in their own little fights against purely each other is confining and unnecessary. So even if it's not a matter of, like you say, Ashihara being base, but just a matter of like, yeah, I just kind of wanted to do a thing, and then the editors got weird about it, then I do agree. It's like, it does get weird if you take things that far.
Yeah, if you have a shonen battle manga and like you have a female character who is a battler, who is basically a fighter character, then it's kind of patronizing if she must be protected from physical harm by the narrative. Or it undercuts her competence as a combatant. I guess, as you said, you don't want to draw up the imagery of sexist abuse, so it's a fine line in some cases. Not in this, though. They're in triune bodies, so...
They're not even hurting each other. I think I got one more note on the comments corner, which is, I wonder what number of plates is an unusually fulfilling one.
What's that a reference to?
Just how Ashihara describes the crockery of the Kako Squad rooms.
Oh, I see.
It is an interesting wording. Yes, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Hang on. I'm looking at the room now. How do you even get to the living room area? Do you just jump over the kitchen counter, or what? How does that work?
Oh yeah, there's like lockers in the way of getting there, and there's no walk-around path for the counter. You're right, yeah.
I guess you could say that there is a bit of space between the counter and the... Do they just squeeze there? That can't be very comfortable, I don't know.
It might, honestly, if the point is that they really, really wanted a kitchen, then maybe it's just like a very bolted on thing. And so they weren't thinking about the fact that they were going to have to just put it there, and they didn't really have the space to, get around their lockers or whatever to get to the living room and stuff, so...
Why have the counter in the first... okay, never mind. It is a really weird design, but I guess it makes sense. I do like the aesthetic of the Gallopodon's character pages. They are very different to what we've seen thus far. I don't remember that Cascaro was a vice captain. Also, I didn't know that chickens, cows, and wheat exist in Gallopodon either, but I guess that checks out. We had some comments about regular animals in the neighborhood world before.
I do like that, these are just kind of... They don't really give you additional insight into how the characters really interact with each other. They seem more like just Ashihara's notes to himself on how the characters should be interacting, and then to see them kind of laid out very flatly kind of gives you insight into how he constructed these characters, and then you can see like, oh yeah, that is how they interact with each other. I'm never a big fan of like important information about a character should come purely in the form of extra material like author's notes and data books and stuff like that. but a little bit extra in terms of like, this is how I came up with this is how this thing looks in great detail, etc. That's a nice like little behind the curtain look into how the thing came together, and these are very nice examples of that.
Generally, I think the volume extras are very illuminating in that regard, and there are very nice additions while not being particularly necessary to enjoy the story itself. Those volume extras, as we've seen, kind of make the data book obsolete. Then we have the Valentine's Day ranking. Osama's number 1 again. Nice.
Good on him.
I do love the Kazama's note. My heart is always growing.
Even if I'm not.
Short jokes about Kazama. They're so basic, but they never fail to make me laugh.
No, it's basically the top 3 characters you'd expect. No real surprises. Like, Kazama is the one that's the most surprising, and even he's not very. It's just like, oh, I could have seen, like, Tachikawa or Izumi, but it's not, like, a big deal that they're not there.
Yeah, Izumi was up there for a while. He has a bit of a boring design, but yeah. I think that's all my notes. Do you have any more, Nick?
No, I think that I'm good. Oh, wait, hang on. That is a big hamburger. Okay, good.
It is quite big. Okay.
Okay, shall we move on to the spoiler corner?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I think one thing that read differently on a reread was the Rata interaction with Gatlin over the intercom at the start of the volume. It very much becomes, so just to check, boss, to, so how do we deal with this matter of interplanetary relations, my subjects?
Yeah. That was definitely a big thing that I was paying attention to when I was reading through it. It is very interesting to go back from years down the line and be like, oh, right, Rada is actually very important, and he's actually the leader, but he's just kind of letting the very experienced guy handle things. I had kind of forgotten when that reveal was done in the manga that it was Gatlin and Rada that were specifically paired off for this battle. So it is interesting that like he is the guy who has the final say on things, but yeah, he is also, probably one of the least experienced people when it comes to doing stuff like this. Seeing him, kind of giving like unspoken approval to what Gatlin is planning and wanting insight on stuff is interesting. It's interesting to see him in that supporting role when you know that he is actually the real leader of the group.
It was also a very interesting dramatic parallel that we had with, Rata and Gatlin, as well as Yotaro and Jin.
Yeah, Yotaro seemed like vaguely logical at the time for Jin to be chasing him down. Like, yeah, the boss's son, nepotism and all that. But now it's like even more so knowing that like, oh yeah, that's like a royalty who is essential for Tamakoma's plans and like the very bedrock of how they use Trion. And also, it could just set a giant capybara kaiju on the city if it goes haywire.
Oh boy. The prince is running off and he's taking his very powerful trigger with him.
Oh dear, Yotaro, what are you doing?
He's gotta go see his friend off. He's gonna get him to say goodbye and give him his toy back.
I'm not crying, you're crying. I was referring to the kind of exchange that he had with Jin beforehand, though. Him kind of being tutored by basically kind of his mentor. He kind of advises him as a strategist and an ace, to be honest, whereas Rata does so with Gatlin as well this volume. So I thought that was kind of curious.
It also just makes the relationship between Yotaro and Hughes just, that has that extra layer to it, to know that, hey, this is Yotaro's true identity, and he's bonding with this lord from, another... It's not the neighborhood. What would you call it? Another neighbor kingdom, I guess? Another kingdom, yeah, so...
A neighbor country. They refer to the individual planets as countries. Yeah, no, it's like that shared experience of being, like, a stranded fugitive that they have in common.
I did want to say that I was glad that they made the note, oh, it's not in this volume. Okay, so it's like the next chapter. They make the note that Gallipola has technology that they weren't aware of, which because the people that they defeat start to bail out. And they're shocked by this because this is the first time they've actually seen neighbors do that. And so I do like that they it repeatedly pushed the idea whenever both the Earth, or whatever you want to call it, and the neighborhood come into contact with each other after that those visiting neighbors haven't been there for a long time, then they're like, oh, that these people have been updating their technology, and that goes both ways usually. And Gallipola was set up in a very different way than After KOTOR was. Gallipola was, this was a group of guerrilla fighters, whereas After KOTOR had all the black triggers and all these royals and former royals and terrifying big villains, and insane blood knights amongst them, who were just overwhelming everyone that they came across with this huge force that really at its core was just a few people and then, a few monsters, whereas Gallipola had to take a very different tack in order to get a much smaller job done. But while the two are portrayed very differently, there's still that idea that because we haven't seen what they can do firsthand for a very long time, they're different from what we knew that they were capable of because they are updating, or because, some new soldier has a black trigger now, or whatever. And I do like that detail is constantly, repeatedly emphasized. And also that whenever, the neighbors come, they're like, oh, the people in Medan have way better technology and better agents now. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is really a great point that everyone keeps updating, like the world apart from Tamakoma 2 is alive, and things are going on in the background even if we don't see them. So yeah, I really like that too.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so I think this is the appropriate section to ask. So what are some of your favourite moments from across the series?
From across the series, oh my god, how do I narrow this down? Like, some of the stuff from just this volume that we read is really cool. There are two very cool finishes to matches that we get. I'm not as high on the big Nasu bullet column as some people are, but I have to admit it does look very cool. And then there is, Ganon, of course, being cut in half along with Tachikawa, also very cool. But I really like a lot of the stuff that happens with Tamakoma as they start to get stuff together. I'm so glad that although Ashihara of course has to go on a different schedule and he has to take more frequent breaks, I'm so glad that World Trigger came back in some form, because honestly, a lot of the best individual moments that have happened in World Trigger have come since it has come back. The payoff for all of Osamu's training with the spiders and having his big bullet barrage go off, Chica finally being able to shoot stuff, that all happened in one match. I like something that happens just after this, where Hughes, of course, decides like, all right, I'm gonna stay, and then he gets to use his black trigger just for a little bit in order to make Reggie feel humiliated one more time, because he didn't get enough of that in this arc.
Not a black trigger. It's a regular trigger, surprisingly, but still, yeah, a very powerful one.
Oh, right. His horns are not black, of course. Right. So, no, his magnetic trigger, I should say. If you help me narrow it down, I'm sure that if you give me some prompts on individual battles, I could help. But there are honestly too many for me to actually feel like I could actually narrow it down. And then there are the just little character moments. We had one very recently that I adore. It's during the away team mission training. Everyone's planning to cook meals, which felt like a really big waste of time overall. But there's just the moment where they're planning what to eat, and then Chica's like, can you use this? And her personal item is a giant block of rice. They're like, why did your personal item's a block of rice? I really like rice.
The little character moments in the latest arc really shine. I really think that this has an important part to play in why we're going to care about these characters in the future Way mission.
Yeah, I mean, and we're probably going to feel like, okay, it's a good thing that we went through all of this, because we did get to know, Bakamura and Katori a bit better. Kakizaki and all the different people who are doing things that seem like really boring minutiae at the time, but then they're going to be important later, so it's good that we have that insight into their characters and be like, God, Ashihara, I guess you're good at planning or something, so...
Hashtag Wakamura Trigger. It's just Wakamura Trigger now.
Let's not get carried away.
Any favorite moments from the invasion?
Osamu deciding that he needs to risk his life and abandoning his Tryon body to save the day. And he does. He doesn't die. Good job, Osamu.
Classic.
I did reread through some stuff because we actually got some questions based on some After Couture stuff. And I do really like all the effort that goes into taking down some of the combatants from After Couture, like Enidora, all the stuff that goes into that, and how a lot of guys that we thought were really, really strong, no, they don't stand a chance against this guy with his really, really garbage broken trigger that can attack your insides and stuff. There's a really great moment that's not actually in the battle, but it's what is his name? It's the white-horned kind of battle rager sort of guy, the one who looks like an Oni.
Rambanine.
Yes, where he's defeated and then they're helping him to escape. And he's just like, man, I needed someone to completely bail me out like this. Yeah, it really was my total defeat. He's just like enjoying it like it was just basically a rank wars battle, like it was just a little exhibition match. And because he's so into combat like that, it gives you that feeling that, like, he's not just a battle raging idiot. He just likes fighting, and if you got to know him on friendly terms, you'd probably get along really well. It's just that he likes fighting you too much to get to that point.
Yeah, real well spotted. I didn't pay attention to that moment that much, but yeah, great character building. So, any more spoilery notes, you two?
Nope.
I don't think so, because I already brought up the Hughes stuff.
Okay then. So let's get to our Q&A.
Our first question comes from a long-time listener of the show, Randall, on the Patreon, who basically gives a bunch of fight matchups. I'm assuming with the implication of like who would win. And the first one that Randall suggests is Rambanine versus Gatlin. Rambanine being the After Couture neighbor that kind of jetpacked around and was a big powerhouse and took like a bunch of B-rank agents and Ionia to take him out, basically.
Yeah, High Rain's brother.
I guess for me, with all of these, I basically mapped out scenarios where I think one could win and where the other could win, because I don't think who has the most power is necessarily the best way to look at a World Trigger fight. So I think I very much slightly lean on Gatlin. I think Gatlin's big weakness to Rambanine is that the latter has lots of aerial mobility, but I think Gatlin's shield would tough out, and I think, his shield would tough out Ramba's blast attacks very well. And they're both decently analytical. That's the thing with Rambanine. He's quite subversively analytical, more so than you'd expect, but he can get heated, and I think if they were placed in an environment where it was some outdoor areas, some indoor areas, I think Gatlin would be able to draw him indoors, but it really is a matter of, is it an enclosed space or not? That would be the key factor.
Interesting. You definitely bring a good point there, that World Trigger's, more logistics than power levels, but yeah, I think that's with such firepower and mobility, I think that Rambanine would actually have the edge. In the large-scale invasion, he seemed just too overwhelming. And in this fight, I think that Gatlin was just lucky that he was fighting against all attackers and no shooters, basically. I think shooting angle and how he can basically maneuver his powerful trigger, he could get the edge against him.
I think it would depend. But if we're looking at this purely in terms of it's just a straight, Street Fighter throwdown, you start on this side, I start on this side, and we run at each other and attack each other, Rambanine would win most battles that way. We have to keep in mind that in the two fights that we've seen, Rambanine was fighting 1-on-10, and Gatlin was fighting 1-on-3, *, he had a bunch of dogs supporting him. I know that, of course, the respective rankings of the agents were different, but Rambanine seems to have that overwhelming advantage in terms of pure force, and Gatlin seems to be much more of a strategist. who has a really cool looking trigger, admittedly, but one that doesn't really do a lot. Like, it's got big arms and it's got a big gun, and I feel like Rambanai could easily dodge those and just bullet him to death. And also, we've seen that he's very strong at breaking defenses. And the way that he was defeated was by basically 5 agents pouring all of their Tryon into one shield in order to block his attack, which probably Gatlin couldn't do. But I'm sure that, there would definitely be scenarios where Gatlin could beat him, but I think in most cases Rambanai would win.
Yeah. Then we have another scenario with Izumi, but with a twist, with Elector, which is a high-range trigger, versus Ko with Organon, Visa's weapon. I do remember vaguely what they do.
I think, yeah. So high-range trigger has the various, fish projectiles that are very, very strong, and Organon creates, these rings that go out and screw up the battlefield. So this one's interesting. I think on paper, Organon could quite easily beat Elector, because it can really screw up the environment, and non-Trion objects can pass through Elector. However, I don't think Ko would be able to take to Organon as well as Izumi could take to Elector. Because, again, I don't... It's not clear. It depends on, has Ko had that chance to use it and arrest, and does that battle learn that side effect work on weapons he's using, or is it just to do with opponent strategies?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely leaning more towards Izumi here.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how does Ko fight without a shield. It's if he's using a black trigger, he would have to discard his ray gun. So I wonder how his enhanced sleeping learning comes into that.
I get where you're coming from. This is also one of those it depends kind of thing. If we're talking about the two of them land on the battlefield and each of them have no other choice to fight except for the trigger that they're provided with, and they're picking it up for the first time, yeah, I could definitely see Izumi probably winning that, just because, I summoned fish that turn you into Tryon cubes. That's kind of broken. And easy to figure out because they're basically, just weird bullets, and I shoot things normally. If they have a little bit of time to practice, Ko probably very swiftly overtakes Izumi because of his quirk being I just learned really fast. But it depends.
The last matchup is Yomi versus Ammo in video games. I mean, it's Yomi. Is Ammo even a confirmed gamer? Come on.
It also depends. I don't know. Are they playing Stardew Valley? if you said Yomi versus the Tachikama Squad operator Kenichika, I would say differently. But Armo?
You're comparing a character whose power is literally to control avatars really, really well, which you can very easily infer good video game skills, against someone who we don't know very much about, and we've not seen use a computer really.
But Hoven, he can gauge somebody's level really well because of the colors you see.
It'll be really interesting to see Amo sit down for the video game battle and go, well, I'm going to lose this.
Let's turn this question into another one. Who would they main in Jump Force?
I don't know enough about Jump Force's roster to be able to answer this, so...
Neither do I, to be honest. I guess Yomi has parallel processing, so he would make good use of assists or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see him having a character I don't know, Jotaro, because it's you control Jotaro and Star Platinum, but I'm sure, that basically just functions as one character, so that wouldn't really affect the parallel processing.
I think you're right. It is tricky, because I was looking at this and I was like, well, Yomi clearly has a thing that ties into video games. I don't know what the hell Amo does in his free time, though. So, I don't know. I guess Yomi? It depends on the video game. If they're playing an RTS game, then Amo's not going to win. But I guess it would depend. Does Yomi know what a video game is? is a question. So
What does Amo do in his free time? Does he just levels all the other cities in Japan to the ground? I don't know.
No, it's like Amo has like the basic knows roughly how a controller works, can like make the characters run around, and Yomi is just like, I'm sorry, I can't do this without the nerve gear. I don't know what I'm doing.
everyone sets up the big battle, and then they're like, well, this is way more disappointing than we envisioned. I guess one of you wins.
Yomi is the Kirito of Gala Poland.
But don't you see, if you die in the game, you bail out.
What an inconvenience that would be if you were playing and every time you lost a round, you had to bail out and start over again.
It would be like the Flowey fight in Undertale.
Okay.
Anyway, do we have any more? Oh yeah, well, so we do have a question from Kroito Pride. So simple question: is Nasu dropping her ultimate the best single page panel in all of World Trigger? Well, to be fair, I don't remember most other single page panels, so I guess I would have to admit it's true. But on the other hand, I guess it's kind of an unpopular opinion, but I think it's kind of flawed. I feel like Nasu's pose is a bit clunky. I think it would work way better and would play to Ashihara's strengths if Nasu were facing the camera and just looking off to the side, especially with the arm. It's a little eerie. And this is not on Ace because obviously the sound effects were positioned like that in the original, but I feel like the sound effects here are a bit awkwardly positioned. I feel like I've seen better panels, like I've praised basically the first panel when Futaba finishes off the Idras with Skanda. I feel like this was an excellent one. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, does the panel of Yuma landing where it goes ham count?
Oh yeah, that's the best one.
I mean, it's definitely. I misread this question. I didn't see single page, so all of my other answers are wrong. But I was going to say, it's definitely up there with Shiori head-petting Chika, eggplant curry, and Hughes failing to use a bike.
I do love the comedic panels in World Trigger, though. They are amazing.
The main things that I think of when I think of single-page stuff in World Trigger are when they've gotten the one-page color pages at the front. I think that whenever World Trigger gets color pages, it's very striking and very stylish. But admittedly, most of the stuff contained within chapters that I can think of striking big visuals are two-page spreads, not single-page spreads. So, yeah, I can't really dispute it. I don't have an example I can think of that I'm immediately like, oh, no, this one's better. But I am basically in agreement with you, Wensley. I don't like it as much as other people do. And when she says like it's kind of awkward, I was like, oh yeah, she does look like she's kind of weirdly pasted on to the foreground there, as opposed to having a more dynamic thing. Like honestly, this would look better if it were a two-page spread.
Yeah, I think so too. I do really love how Ashihara does color, especially in the volume covers. I feel like the lighting is really good in that. Good example of that in with Tachikawa here.
Oh yeah.
Yes, with the backlighting, it looks very cool.
I do have a question myself. Who do you think is going to be on the volume cover of the away mission test? Because like we had some covers with Osamu already. We had a cover with Kotori. We had a cover with Suwa already. Is fucking Wakamura going to get it?
My thought is probably the glasses operator from Kotori Squad. She got a big spotlight.
She did, yeah.
Maybe if Ashihara just wants to spotlight the new character, the guy you described as looking like Shiki Eden Zero, who I don't actually remember his name.
Urashima,
there we go.
I guess it could be a good spot to give it to someone from the administration or something, like Kido.
Kinuta, our lad Kinuta finally gets it.
Yes, please.
I need to get onto a cover. The question is how?
I mean, Chika has been on 2 volume covers so far, so it might be time to go. Well, so have Yuma and Osamu, I guess. But my point is that it might be the time to start doubling up on certain other ones by now. So
yeah.
But yeah, that is an interesting question. Like, if you do look at it in terms of like what characters have appeared so far and what characters are prominent now, it is an odd. You're like, I don't know. So
one question we got in email from Anna is, how did you choose the music for each section of the podcast? Take it away, Wensley.
The first one that I do for the intro is trigger on. There's no real reason for it apart from the fact that that's like we say trigger on at the beginning, and it's the beginning of the transformation. It's the music that's in every trigger transformation in the anime. I think it's kind of dynamic, but pumps you up for it, and it works quite well. The second one that we used for the interview here is called Talented Elite. It works well because like we're interviewing a talented elite.
Yes, I saw that.
For the next two sections, the volume summary and the general thoughts, no real thought put into it. I just like the tracks. It's Border Upper Echelon and Wonders of the Neighbors. Yeah, they're quite dramatic, and the other one is pensive, so it kind of fits the mood of what we're talking about. For the Ashihara Comments Corner, I use the fun facts theme at the end of each that we got at the end of each episode, and then for Spoiler Corner, I use Light to the Future because we're talking about the future, so it makes sense. For the Q&A, I use Question to Myself, because, of course. For the outro, it's Milo Jack Stilitz's Giri Giri, the instrumental version of the opening sequence of World Trigger, which also Hovin had in his video essay. There is another question from Anna. It's called, what are your favorite themes from the World Trigger anime soundtrack? So what do you guys think?
100 Times Enjoy, which I think is that one that you use for the fun facts segment. It's a nice light-hearted one. I do like the kind of, I think it's like a tuba, womp, 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 like that. Border Sortie is a very nice variation on the main theme. I was surprised that, like, when I heard the World Trigger main theme, that it's actually like a very short version, because I'm so used to that Talented Elite version that you play in each episode, because that's what tends to be the music going on in combat.
Yeah, it's one thing about the World Trigger soundtrack a bit disappointed by is that the characters don't really have their own leitmotifs or anything, do they?
It's always nice when an anime does that, yeah.
Jin's theme is just basically a variation of the main theme of the series, so that's kind of all right, I guess. I do really like Fun Days.
Yes, that one is good.
Which is like the wacky like the leitmotif from this one is kind of reworked into some Rank Wars themes. It kind of works in a more dramatic way, and I thought it was kind of clever.
Tamakoma's Holiday has a very nice kind of city pop vibe to it. I've been listening to a lot of city pop lately, so I do vibe with this a lot. That kind of relaxed, kind of jazzy disco sort of theme.
Which one was it? What was the da 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 da?
I actually don't remember. I just wrote this down as I was listening to all the soundtrack, and I couldn't actually hum you it.
Yeah, I guess Nikki didn't watch the anime, so...
No, I mean, if I had listened to it, I could tell you, like, oh, this one's catchy, but normally I get more attached to stuff from the soundtrack because I watch something, and since I have no experience with it, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, I'll give you this. So, which is your favorite theme from the soundtrack of One Piece?
I don't like the One Piece soundtrack generally.
Oh,
it all sounds the same to me. Like I need stuff that like is more distinct from itself, and at least in terms of the stuff that's actually been on the soundtracks that have actually been released, a lot of it really blends together for me. Then again, there is also just a ton of the One Piece anime that I have not watched because I just read the manga generally. So I'm sure that there's probably some bangers on that soundtrack. They've had enough episodes to make some good songs on them. So
that's really interesting. I know that Chris really likes Frankie's theme, which I'm also a big fan of. But what about World Trigger openings? Do you have any favorite of the four?
I don't know if I've actually listened to any of them.
Oh, okay. Oh, well.
I'm feeling myself to be a fake shonen fan over here. You need to stop this. You've just got these penetrating questions for me.
Favorite My Hero Academia opening?
Oh, okay, that's easier. I do actually really like the current one, the merry-go-round one. It's very, 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 very catchy, energetic.
Oh, yeah.
Was not a fan of the previous one. I think that My Hero openings are very up and down, actually. The first one was very good. let me actually look up a list because I can't think of them actually off the top of my head.
Everyone's a fan of the second one, apparently, but I thought it was kind of meh.
Yeah, same.
The peace sign one, is that it?
Yeah.
That's not my favorite, no. I like Sora ni Uteba better than it. It's really uplifting and energetic.
Yeah, probably my favorite.
Odd Future is okay, but I like other people doing it more than like the original. Make My Story don't like. Honestly, I think that I dislike more of these more than the ones I like. But I do really like the current one, and I like Sora ni Uteba.
We'll trigger podcast, everyone.
I was going to say, Star Maker, I think, is really, really nice for the kind of tone that it's trying to do. It's very, like, kind of chill, slice of lifey, upbeat.
It's very good for, like, the time that it's set in. Yes, I think it's appropriate. It's not my type of song generally, but it's very appropriate for it, for where it is.
To get it back to World Trigger, I think my overall statement on the soundtrack is, it's not the most notable, but it's very competent and it fits the overall theme quite well. It's sort of what I wanted the Eden Zero soundtrack to be, because I recently watched the Eden Zero anime and was really let down of just like, wow, you did not play into the sci-fi setting with this at all. Like, it's basically just a bunch of generic orchestral and guitar tracks. There's not really much to it, which is a big letdown after how good Fairy Tail soundtrack was.
Fairy Tail does have a banging soundtrack, actually. It might be the best thing to come out of that entire franchise.
Yeah. I honestly, my thoughts on the World Trigger soundtrack changed as I was doing this podcast. When I first listened to it in the anime, it was like, all right. I'm not really sure I like the songs, but oh yeah, when I use it for the podcast, I think, oh, this actually sounds quite good.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I think I should add these to my, like, Star Wars D&D playlist. I think this would fit really well with some of them.
Oh, nice.
There are some elements of certain series that I think have that same thing, where they're, like, individually good songs, but, like, their utilization in the show isn't always great. Bleach, I think, is generally, Bleach's anime has, tracks that are well implemented in it, especially, like, during ominous moments. There's a lot of great tracks that they can pull from for those kind of moments. There are also just a bunch of songs that I think are just kind of thrown in, don't really fit, but if you listen to them individually, they are just fun to listen to. So, and because there have been so many, there are a number of those that are like that. So,
sorry.
I believe you were going for On the Precipice of Defeat. I think that's what you were doing.
It's very distinctive, yeah.
Yeah, I think Soundscape to Ardor is a good, like, angsty one. That's the one with the piano that goes do 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 do.
Oh yeah, I used it for a while in our PTU campaign during a tense moment, and then I didn't manage to switch to the next one, and our GM, well, Grail. Why am I saying our GM? Grail was like, "Can you turn it down? This is really depressing."
It's also just like very noticeable, so it's not that's the kind of song that, like, when it comes in, it's like, okay, yeah, this is very moody. I'm trying to talk over here, can you turn it down? That's very distracting. And you don't want a soundtrack to be distracting. You want it to enhance, not draw all the attention away. So
yeah, that is all the questions, isn't it?
That will be all of them.
All right then, if that's okay, then let's round off.
Let's do it.
Okay, that is going to do it for the 15th episode of Duckface Diaries. You can listen to us on so many podcast hosting sites: Anchor, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Breaker, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Podbay, Play FM, Listen Notes, Castro, Google Podcasts. I managed to do it all in one breath. Yay. Patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar is where all the links are. Everything is in the pinned post. That's also what helps me pay the bills, so if you want me to devote more time to making the show better, consider supporting me there. In return, you can get your name in the YouTube credits or a World Trigger Duckface avatar, plus you can help me reach more ambitious goals like reviving World Trigger Bridged. Remember that, much like the neighborhood, the YouTube algorithm is a dark abyss of sorrows and woes from which channels like these never surface, and what helps us navigate it is liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcast with a friend. On the YouTube channel, and the same RSS feed, you get access to not only Duckface Diaries, but Manga Mosaic, a collection of podcasts on video essays and other manga titles. Coming soon on the same channel, Podcastmon Adventures, our new retrospective where we cover the Pokemon special/adventures manga arc by arc, along with the host of the Pink Ale Pod, Henry Kathman, which is also something that Nik has done. Well, not with Henry Kathman, with Chris. Good transition. Nik, where can people find you?
You can mostly find me on Weekly Manga Recap. We put the show up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Weekly Manga Recap, on Podbean, weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. You can also be found on iTunes and Spotify, and generally anywhere that podcasts get posted. Just do a search for Weekly Manga Recap to listen to it. And we record the show on Wednesday evenings around 7:30 Eastern Time on twitch.tv/RoloT. You can also find my individual stuff if you search for Nik of Time on YouTube. And I can be found on Twitter at NikFTime. That's just NIKFTIME.
That is correct. And remember to check out the...
I know.
And remember that somewhere at the end of the month, probably during the time of release of this podcast, Weekly Manga Recap is going to do a special Sadistic September episode on History's Strongest Disciple, Kenichi.
Yeah, we are.
Which is a manga that I've actually enjoyed back when I first read it, so this is going to be interesting.
So did I!
Aww.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to that in about 3 months, because at this rate, I'm just falling behind on podcasts so much, but yeah.
Right then. Hovin, plug our sister show.
HOVIN'S HIDEAWAY, where me and various other former Stammerstream lot discuss all sorts. Video games, mainly manga and anime stuff, mainly when a manga that we've been keeping up with comes to an end. I might have something coming to it. I don't want to make any concrete promises, but I've got something in the works that might see the light of day. We'll see.
And then once again, you can find all the links to Nick's stuff and to Hovin's stuff in the description or in the pinned post at patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar. And of course, check out patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap. I'd like to plug something in addition as well. So by the time this releases, the stream will have already passed, but hey, you can check out the stream archive on the World's Elsewhere YouTube channel. Some of you may know that for a year now, I've been part of a YouTube theatre company, World's Elsewhere, created in part by Carl Calgren of Brows Held High. This time I'm taking part as the narrator as well as the technical director in a small production of a short play called The Space Between, written by a very talented part of our team, Meredith Cook, and directed by Kyle. It's a futuristic sci-fi story as well, funnily enough, so I'd love for you all to check it out.
Yes.
Send us emails, questions, comments, suggestions at wensleydale012@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter at Duckface Diaries, or individual Twitters at Wednesday Cheddar and at Hovin with an H. Nick's Twitter is, once again, Nik of Time, and at WMR Podcast for Weekly Manga Recap. A sincere thank you to Milo Jack Stillitz, who composed our ending theme, an orchestral rendition of Giri Giri, the first opening sequence for World Trigger. You can find his work at soundcloud.com/Milo Jack Stillitz. Hovin, what are we covering next time?
Next time, we'll be covering Volume 16 of World Trigger, which covers chapters 134 to 142, and Season 2, episodes 4 to 6.
Alrighty then. Nik, thank you very much for guesting on the show. It was a pleasure to have you.
It was a lot of fun, and this has reminded me that I need to do a reread of this series, because it's been a long time since I had read this section of it. So.
Ah, nice. Amazing. And when you do, we would love to have you on again sometime in the future.
All right, sounds fun.
Okay then, so thank you very much for listening, everyone, and this was the 15th episode of Duckface Diaries, and as always, it's time to bugger off!
Bugger off.
Amazing.
You asked me to say something British. I commit.